Hi, my name's Heather Cline, and I'm a professional artist. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit how I became an artist, and also about my project Quiet Stories from Canadian Places. First thing you should know is I really love paint. No matter how old I get, I still take great pleasure in mucking about, mixing colors, and applying paint to objects. When I was a kid, I started learning how to paint because I was inspired by people like William Kralik. In fact, when I was just a little kid, my parents gave me his Prairie Boys year calendar for Christmas. And my mom would never let me turn to the next month until it was actually that time. And I just looked so forward to seeing all his different images of the prairies because they seemed like stories, which I really enjoyed. I went to art school for training. I actually went to university and did my BFA. Then I worked as an artist for a few years, as well as working in local art galleries and institutions, and went back to do my Master of Fine Arts. As I was going to school, something that was really important was looking at artwork. I was really attracted to artwork that was juicy, expressionist painting, also by artwork that seemed to be telling a story or setting a scene. I was also influenced by artwork that used new technology. I think that sometimes you need to look at work that doesn't look like your own work to be pushed and inspired to think about moving in other directions. I've been working as a professional artist for over 20 years, and over that time, how I work changes depending on the kind of topic that I'm working on. So, for example, I had a theme that was on 13 superstitions, and I tried to really use materials as a part of the story. This was Step on a Crack, Break Your Mother's Back, and you can see I've got eggshells broken all around the edges. One of my important early series was on the alphabetical rail line. I did a body of work that was about the history of a series of towns in Saskatchewan. They're all along the rail line and they're actually in alphabetical order. My parents grew up in Zelma, Saskatchewan, the end of the line. And so I'd heard stories from their town, and it led me to research the history and stories of the other towns on the line. I took the history that I researched, the stories I collected, and translated them into artwork. This led directly to the Quiet Stories project, where I wanted to collect stories directly from people and use them in my work. I was also influenced by doing some work in television. This got me interested in how audio and visual technology could be integrated into my art practice. For the Quiet Stories project, the biggest challenge was to figure out how to interview people for the project. So I tried a few different approaches to the project along the way. For the first project, I decided to work with a performance artist to set up kind of an installation, almost like a set, in an office space on a street in Regina. This project allowed me to invite people into a space, interview them, collect their stories to be translated into paintings and audio works for a standalone exhibition called Populating Veduta. For the next part of the Quiet Stories project, I actually went to Oshawa, Ontario. And again, I set up a fake office space in the inner city in Oshawa on an empty storefront. I started focusing in on the exact places that people were talking to me about. And that became a very important part of the project, especially when I went to my next stop, Inglis, Manitoba. In Inglis, I decided to change how I was doing things. I asked the local community how they thought I should try to engage people in their community and get them to share their stories. This resulted in riding around in combines for a day. I was driven combine to combine and got inside and interviewed people while they were working. I also interviewed people through a project that I did at the local school. School children came in and did an art project with me in the morning, and then in the afternoon they baked pies with local seniors. So I was able to interview both the school children and the seniors who came in to help for the project. My next stop was Vernon, where I had a 6-week residency that allowed me the luxury of a lot of time to meet with people, interview them, and really document the area that I was going to paint. One of the most fascinating things was learning about how the new modern orchard is planting apple trees the same way that they plant grapevines. As I was working on the project, I found that the stories were kind of starting to fit into categories. There were stories about work life, stories about people's homes, stories about the leisure activities that people did in their spare time, and then a group of stories that I ended up calling arrivals and departures, that were kind of stories about life change or struggle or inequity. They were stories that didn't quite fit anywhere else in the project, but fit really well under this notion of arrivals and departures or change in life. During the last part of the project, I went to the communities of Kelowna, Moose Jaw, and then Swift Current. So the Quiet Stories project has been about meeting people from across Canada, being inspired by their stories and their history to create a body of historical paintings, paintings that really document these everyday places and events as if they were important historical moments. Why shouldn't things that happen to us on an everyday basis have as much impact on sharing history as some of the big historical moments? And artists, in a way, have always been documenting history, both in formal ways with historical portraits, but also just in how they capture their own surroundings and their own life. One of the things I love about visual art is that I don't have to just tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I can sort of throw out a whole bunch of ideas about story and about people's lives and let you, the viewer, come to the gallery and bring your own life experience to how you interpret the show. The Quiet Stories exhibition ended up being over 50 paintings and 3 different kinds of audio works. There's audio tags that go with a specific painting, and then there's audio players that play groups of stories that relate to groups of paintings. And finally, there's hanging parabolic speakers that are motion activated that play groups of stories for people to experience while they're in the gallery space. So my name's Heather Cline, and that's a little bit about my show, Quiet Stories from Canadian Places.